God is not transactional. And I think when you get in those situations like you're talking about, where someone's telling somebody that, hey, if you give God all you got, God gonna give you back twofold, threefold.
Yeah.
And they're thinking that, okay, well, if I give 100, God gonna give me back 300. God is not an investment.
Great investment.
Yeah. God is not a Ponzi scheme.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Today for Tomorrow podcast. You know, it's Martel Fletcher. I'm with Feltz. Good morning, Feltz.
Good morning.
Today on this episode of the podcast, we are going to be touching on a subject that is highly debated in the church. Highly debated.
Yes.
I mean, there's been a lot of conflict over this. There's been divides about this. You know, people have the issues, Michigan State. It ain't nothing like this. I think this subject right here, the way that you think about it reflects in your lifestyle, and it shows the way that you think about Jesus directs how you go about your faith.
Mm-hmm.
And in this subject, if you don't have a clear understanding of the pairing between these two things we're about to talk about, it's going to make you go in a different direction.
Man, you built it up, Martel. I mean, I know everybody like, what are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? And it's not communion. But
It's not communion. The subject is God and money.
I love the way you framed it, because sometimes people bring the two together in the wrong way, and sometimes people disconnect the two. Because you got the one side where people think you gotta be, you can't have money. You can't serve God and have money. You should be, just hand to mouth, whatever, and so forth. And that the word don't tell us that. And then some people feel like, well, hey, God gonna bless you abundantly, which they think it's always about having all this money. And if they don't have it, they feel like God, they're not being blessed. So I'm glad we're talking about this topic, because, God, what it said, the word tells us the love of money is the root of evil. But people take that and twist it and say, money is the root of evil, all evil. That's not true. Yeah. So anyway, that's what came to mind when you brought the topic up.
I think that's a good point, and that's important that we touch on that specific point where, like you said, it's the love of money that makes the thing evil. And to me, it just makes me think about like just perspective, as far as, one thing I always think about, and I think we were just talking about this in the Manhood 2.0 meeting, is that how can I help anybody if I can't really help myself? Like, how can I help the poor if I'm one of them? If you struggling and you struggling, I'm struggling, I may want to give you this water I have. I see you dying of thirst, but I'm thinking, man, if I give you the water, I ain't gonna have no more water.
Yeah.
Hey man, I wish you well, my brother. You know what I'm saying? And that's where it goes back to God. We gotta think of God in abundance, and we are abundant through God. And money is just used as a vessel. Money, like I always say, money has no owners, just spenders.
Yeah.
And we often get that misconstrued, and I'm guilty of it sometimes. So, we start looking at our bank account, and you start, I'm making 6 figures, I'm feeling good, and it's like, that's cool, but what are you doing with your money?
Yes.
That's the most important thing, because we have, when more is given, more is expected. And we have responsibilities, like we have to give back to the poor, we have to tithe, we have to make sure that what God is blessing us to be stewards over, we're utilizing in the proper ways and forms.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think it was a great point that you mentioned there, because you were talking about if I needed some water, right, and then you had some water, and I didn't have it, you was thirsty too, then you keeping it close to the chest. You ain't showing me that water you got. I think that reminds me of the story of the Good Samaritan. They came up and they were asking Jesus, all right, who is my neighbor? Because they were talking. And then he went into the parable, and he was talking about how there was a man, he got robbed, beat up, he was sitting there, he was messed up, he was down bad. And then there was the priest that came by, Mr. Preacher Man, he walked past. He just walked past. The Levite came, same thing, other side, walked past. And then there was a Samaritan man who came. He helped him out. He had silver. He had some oil for him. And then he picked him up, took him to an inn, and took care of him.
Yeah.
The thing is, the man couldn't have done those things if he didn't have to give.
Yeah,
Right.
Yep. And what's so interesting about that story, the individual who's passed him were men of God, right?
God, yes.
And so you would think, hey, they would be the first
What can I do?
to help out. And the one who helped them was the one that in that time would be the least in someone's mind to step up and help.
Where's your heart at?
Exactly. And I think, and I bring that up because as you talk about it, it's like, we look at people sometimes and you think because this person's not, preaching or they're not in, you don't see them physically worshiping in church and you judge them because, oh, well, they ain't doing nothing for God. But in the behind the scenes, they could be putting people through college. They could be doing A, B, C, and D. You hear it all the time. But I'm not thinking about Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry, and I'm not trying to have people love him or hate him or whatever, but the point though is that he does a lot behind the scenes to build people up. And he has a Christian background, but you don't see him in those arenas like that. You don't think of him like, oh yeah, he's a Christian. That's not the first thing that comes to mind. But you can tell what drives what he does is based on his faith.
Yeah. And I think that's incredibly important too, because it's like you mentioned scripture, for the love of money is the root of all evil. And that love, the love of money, that tells you where your treasure is, your heart will be also. So if I'm doing, because we all know that, you hear the saying, like there's more joy in giving than receiving.
Yeah.
And and that's true. I don't know if you guys if you've ever taken care of a kid.
He got a basketball team.
There's so much that goes into it, and it draws you closer to that person that you are giving to. That's just how it works. And if somebody on the other side is just here, we know about all the spoiled kids on the planet who don't feel nothing for their parents.
Yes.
It's a different exchange. Those who give love, they feel it. It's a stronger connection between the two.
You're right.
And so if all of my treasure, if all of what I'm doing is on me, then it's close to my heart. That means that I'm the most important thing in my head, and that's all there is to it. So if you want some of what I got, first, hold up. I only got this water bottle right here. So you thirsty? I can't help you.
You get nothing. Man, and just going back to the woman, and we talk about different instances in the Bible, the woman that had little, and she gave pretty much all she had. I mean, I think I remember how the story goes. She had a rich man who gave X. Then you had a poor woman who gave pretty much all she had.
Yeah.
The rich man could afford to give a piece of what his what he had. Yep, take that. So because like a person who has $1 and they give their last dollar is a lot more impressive than someone who has $10,000 and gives $1,000.
He gives that same dollar.
Yeah,
$2.
Yeah, exactly.
And even in that same vein, I think we have to go back and examine how we learn like certain principles and foundational thinking about money. To be honest, especially in our community, a lot of it was from the scarcity mentality.
Yeah.
We didn't traditionally, we don't come from backgrounds of abundance.
Yeah.
You can take it back to slavery times where everything was, we had too little of everything. And so you think about, this mindset and these practices gets passed down from generation to generation. And so now we live in a time where, to be honest, man, it's, I don't want to say it's so easy to make money, but there's so many different avenues and ways to make money.
Yeah.
And like our parents, a lot of our parents, they had to sacrifice their time for money. And that's just the way it was.
Yeah.
They didn't really have, you know, the YouTubes or social media or, you know, film or real estate. Like they were more limited. So I have to give my time. And that's how I show my kids love, because they know I'm out making a living
money.
for us.
Yeah.
But the reality is, and I'll never forget this, this is, I think, right before I had my first son, or my wife had my first son, this young lady told me something. And she said, you know the way kids spell love, Mike? And I'm like, you know, this is a trick question.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
And she was like, Time.
Mm.
And she said, you know, just make sure you make time for him. And it made me just think about, you know, my life, my upbringing. And I held that close to my heart. And the way I look at money now is, I mean, money is just energy, really.
Yeah.
Because, you know, it's paper, man. We make value. This could be money. If you was in the desert, this would be, hey, $500 value. Yeah, because you need it.
And what they call it, money is a note.
What's a note? Yeah.
It's a note. And when as you were talking, I was just thinking about that. The timepieces is huge, like you say. But one thing you said early on too is like our parents and how the scarcity of money, how money bringing home the bacon or whatever was like kind of symbolizing love and money. But you know, that's still happening. I mean, it's still true today, maybe even more so, where, you know, parents or those who go out and they buy things to say, hey, as a kid, you should be happy because I done bought you this, but not giving them that time, like you said.
Yeah.
You got clothes on your back.
Yeah,
What
you
complaining for?
got the new Xbox, you know, you good. You know, you should be all right.
And the thing is, things will never be fulfilling. Like anybody that has, well, most people, everybody that I've spoken with, when you had like a thing that you were working towards buying, once you buy that thing, after a while, it's like, you know, the Benz is just a car.
It loses
It's
shine.
like,
Yeah.
you know, the Rollie is just a watch. It's not even. It's only luxury to those that haven't attained it yet. You realize like it's really no value. It's really just other people just kind of keeping score on each other.
And what happens when that mindset, when that luster goes off that thing? What does the person in that mindset do? They
You
go
gotta
buy
chase something else. Yeah, you gotta get another thing, and it's a never ending process. But once you really find out, and you know, you get close to God and people of God, it all goes back to you have the only thing that's really going to give you a fulfilling sensation is that building on your relationship with God.
Yes.
Because then that's going to come in your heart. You know what? I have X amount. Okay, I'm going to go tithe this amount. I'm going to give back to the poor for this amount. And that's really what you're doing. You're going to get more. You're not worried about it, because He's gonna place in your heart the strategies of, because I always tell people, man, they'll ask me about my business plans and this and that and the third. And I'm like, to be honest, like I'm spiritually led. Like I can't explain the reason why I bought that house sight unseen. And I can't recommend that you do it because I don't know if it's gonna work out. I know for me, was it the right move? Of course. Would I do it again? Yeah. But that's based on me and my spirit. That was a conversation me and God had. You may not have been on that conversation.
You went in that call.
Yeah, real talk. So it's like, you got to figure out what God is telling you to do. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
What we say, lions only. That's what we've been talking about on our lions only. It's like, look, if you ain't a lion, I can't advise you to go hunt like this. You got to stay in your lane.
This ain't for you.
If you a fox, you can't hunt like a lion.
Man, the pigeons can't soar with the eagles.
I think it's really important to readdress that foundation. Like, so a lot of the ways that we think about money, like you were saying, is, you know, comes from our upbringing. It comes from, you know, how our parents dealt with money, what their relationship to it was. And so we like, when a kid grows up and in a situation where their parents don't have much money, or they think that their money is what shows their appreciation for the kid, then the kids, the perception of it becomes a little bit warped.
Yeah.
It's not biblically sound. And so on the other side of that, we see maybe you got a hardworking mother, a hardworking father, and the kid grows up and they understand that they need to make an income for themselves to live, But now they don't understand that, well, I don't believe that I should have anything else. I should only have the bare minimum to survive.
Yeah.
And that's a dangerous spot to be in.
Minimalist type mindset. And I think to expand, we talked about kids and money too, but it's and I'm, Mike and I are married. You're not there yet, Martell. We're not saying he's going there anytime soon. But anyway, but the point though is that sometimes husbands will try to, give to their wives too, and substitute for. And I when you said time, I was thinking about my wife. I'm like, she wants time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And think something through. She's like, look, you ain't got to get me nothing major or nothing like that, but just the fact you think about getting me something, or you plan something, that's showing my love for her, because that's what she wants versus, coming in with, let me buy you a coat or let me buy you some jewelry. And I think that when we talk about God and money, like as you're talking about, it does excuse how we are raised, how we watch and see. Oh, that's what we need to do, because that means something. Money is important enough. It's a substitute. It's a substitute for all these other things,
And just to touch on kids and the foundational principles about what we're programmed with at an early age, I think it's important to say when we're raising our kids, and when I say our kids, I don't mean my own, I mean all of our kids, we have to bring them into some of those conversations early.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's one thing that I love doing, is taking my kids on property sites, and we'll talk about, and they're like, well, how do we, well, we have to spend some money and we got to do this. And now, they can tell you what an investor is. They can tell you what profit is. They can tell you what credit is. And a lot of times we're taught, well, these things are bad. Stay away from credit cards. You don't want that. Yeah. But it's like, the reality is, no, you have to be disciplined in your foundational principles. Mm-hmm. And if you utilize them correctly, they can actually be very beneficial. But it all goes back to the discipline. I'll never forget, I was in a real estate event, and one of the speakers, he was like, I can't stand business credit. I hate it. And I'm like, why would you say that? But the thing was, he's like, well, so many of our people have messed up a lot of, money based on business credit. I said, well, it was really based on their discipline or lack thereof. Yeah. And that's why they messed up the credit. Because credit, the way I look at it, is really just like your word being your bond. Mm-hmm. If I say, you know what, I'm going to buy that from you. You say, man, your word is good with me, Mike. Hey, I get the money to you on Friday, man, no problem. That means if I'm still alive, I'm going to make sure I get that, because that was my word. I said I was going to do it.
And where does that come from? You think about, I know the answer, but the point is that how your relationship with God dictates how you interact with other people.
Yeah.
You follow me? And I remember, like, your word, we talk about your word means something, because you care about it. And I'm just putting words in your mouth here, but I know you care about how God sees you.
Exactly. And you care about, for one, first and foremost, how God sees you, but also how do you see yourself? That's the thing. Like, you can't fake energy. You can't. If you don't believe in yourself, I would never believe in you. No matter how good of a salesman you are, because it's an energy, it's an unspoken agreement that
you don't believe in yourself.
You can't. Some people will try to fake the funk, but it's kind of obvious. And that's really what it comes back to. You got to get back to core things and build up some of these, some of the brokenness that you may have had, or we may have had from early age. Just the thought process, man, is sometimes as an adult, you really have to take time, do an inventory check, and you have to unlearn some habits that you picked up.
That's right.
Just based on your programming. Because we're all a product of it. We come from all different types of environments, but especially like urban environments, we're used to seeing a shortage. Mm-hmm. Robbing Peter to pay Paul. Go, ask your neighbor, we can borrow this. And that becomes like, all right, well, it's not enough to go around. Yeah. Any kid can see that. If you constantly begging, or it's stress, or every time first of the month come the bills, you feel it in the house, it's kind of stressful. Like, we gotta figure out how to pay this rent, or we gotta figure out how to pay this mortgage.
So let's rapid fire. Let's break down a few questions in under this topic. So does God want you to have money?
Absolutely. In my opinion.
He wants you. He provides.
He provides. And so when I think about it, because because then the question becomes, okay, so then how much is too much? Is it because if I'm rich, does that automatically make me evil? Right? And because we see, there's a lot of people who are extraordinary entrepreneurs and they make a whole lot of money, right? It's like, oh, well, that person must be evil because the scripture says that the money is evil. And it's like, it don't say that.
No, it don't.
And it's context too. It's not just in a vacuum. You can't just say, oh, you have money therefore you're equal. Like, no, it's so. How did you get the money? What are you doing with the money? Like it's so much context. I think that's the more important question because like you said, whether you have $2 and you're willing to give $1, or if you have $1 million and you're willing to give 500,000, or you're willing to give $1, like, it's all about the context, the mindset, and the purpose behind how you utilize the money.
And this is just my thoughts. Okay, you guys are chiming in on this too. So, as you asked the question, just to state what you said, the context is right on point. I think one of the challenges with money is that as you get more, there's those who become we're terminal rich. That does that cause you to start to lose sight of who God is? And then, you know what I mean? So I think that's really where it comes in. That discipline we talk about. If you understand that, hey, God gave me this, I'm going to continue to use what I have to move God's mission forward. It doesn't mean we can't have pleasure. Don't mean we can't have certain things. We shouldn't be worshiping them and so forth. But not having money pushes individuals a lot of times to seek God because they are without, they are hurting. So they're like, well, man can't help me. Lord, I need you to help me.
Or it makes them go farther and farther away from God.
Yes, yes, exactly. And the flip can be the case with money. Money can do the same thing. So yeah, I just want to throw that out there. That's all. Because I think that's where I think it gets kind of twisted.
Ronnie, tell me this. Is it if a Christian is rich, is that a problem?
No, not a thing following the tenets of the Bible. Because and what is rich? I mean, well, we're going to use money as being rich, okay, for right now.
Yep.
Okay, so they're a multimillionaire and they're a Christian. Okay, goes back. How are you making your money? Do you love your money over God? Are you serving Him? And the one thing is, living in excess. What I mean in excess means that are you just burning money? You know what I mean? And that goes back to being a good steward of what you have.
The scripture also talks about the rich fool.
Yeah.
Literally, he had a bunch of money and he didn't know where he could keep it. Yeah. And so he was building up bigger and bigger barns so that he can put his money into those places and just to save him up for himself.
Yes.
And his immediate needs and everything that he wanted, he needed to be taken care of with his money that was stored up in these big old barns so that he could just have it. But when he needed it later, now think about it. What do we have today that sounds just like that?
Hey,
it's retirement account.
Yeah, it is. And you're right. And I guess with that, and I'm very close to that. So anyway, so and it's not bad to plan for the future and be there. But when you think that that's your salvation, that's going to be your right. That's hey, man, I got my retirement. I got my 401k, so I'm like, I'm set.
I'm secure because of my wealth.
You hit it right on the head. That's it.
I think another misconception is that money changes you. To me, I've been around, in my field, real estate, I'm around a lot of people with a lot of money. It gives you permission to be more of who you already were. For real.
So you're saying it's already there.
It was already there. And you don't have to fake the funk. And, like we worked in corporate. You see people, hey, how's it going? It's like, man, you don't talk like that. And it's like, when they feel like they have to be a certain way. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
And it's like, when you have more means, to be honest, I really studied this, and I'm like, it gives you permission to be more of, because we heard the term like, FU money. Like I can say, man, like, I don't care about that. Like, you get out of my face with that, And the thing is, that's what you have to be careful about. You have to constantly be more disciplined because you do have more means at your disposal. So you have more access. The people around you tend to change, to be honest.
Yeah.
You start getting more calls like, hey, hey, the lights not on this week. How long the lights ain't been off? How it's all of a sudden became light, and you get, that's people that you love too, because they know that you have it, but they don't see the light bills that you have.
No.
And that's the part that people get it misconstrued. A lot of people are just looking at the results, what the world sees, and I'm like, oh man, he got it or she got it. I could always hit. But it's like, you don't understand the responsibility that comes and the bills that when you have money and means, people are always asking for something. They always need something because it's just how it is. It goes back to, we were talking about a different topic on a different pod, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If my core needs aren't being taken care of, all bets are off. All bets are off. Core needs, you have air, water, shelter.
Yeah, I got
food.
it. I'm hungry. I got it.
These are core needs, and if those aren't being taken care of, everything else is distant, secondary. Yep. This is the main thing.
Well, let's talk about because I know we some weeks ago we were having a conversation with a few fellas who don't wear the faith flag. They don't wear the Jesus t-shirt, right? And one of the main things one of the first things and most redundant things that they kept saying was, well, it's almost like I had to pay a cover charge to go into the church. Because every time I walked in, the pastor was asking me for this. He asked me money for this, money for that. We need to build a new driveway. We need a new section over there for the kids. We need this and this and this and this and this. So I felt like I had to almost pay a membership fee to go to the church. Let's address that.
And we should, because and whose fault is that? That if I'm gonna say this, if it's the person made to feel that way when they walk in, and they got 10 different offerings, you know what I mean? It does feel like a shakedown. Yeah. It does. And then the other piece too, and I'm just giving a scenario. If the individual pastor, whoever is preaching that day, if they're making it guilt you into giving, we got to question that. So, and then you also got to say, okay, what is the motivation? Because it's okay to, don't get me wrong, it's okay to put out, but give the principles of giving. Have people give based on what God's telling them to give. Explain the importance why you should, and we talked about it here. You give them a portion of what God gave you to help. You're not giving something that God don't own. He got it all. Mm-hmm. So it's an attitude, it's a mindset. It's like, okay, why are you giving? But when those situations pop up, and I've seen them too, I've been in there, and I sit there, I'm like, it just turns me off because I get that vibe like, man, wait a minute, and so it puts my mind in the wrong place. I'm not thinking about the fact that I need to do what God is telling me to do, regardless of what this man what man or woman telling me to do. So it does turn, and sometimes it's because then I'm gonna say this one piece: being in a church and being in leadership at that church, and seeing how things go. Sometimes they're looking at them bills. Yeah. And they're like, and they'll turn around like, well, that's, you got to get up and preach about giving because we got to pay these bills.
So this is a true story from my personal experience. I was at a particular church, and this is my first, I was invited to the church. Mm-hmm. I didn't know the routine. And so we had an offering. I'm like, cool, pastor played around, give what I, offer. And we, church got good, word got good, and we clapping, we praising. It was a good time. And, we had another offering. So I'm like, reach down deep in your pockets. Okay.
When you got the surface,
I'm like, yeah. So I'm like, all right, I gave a little bit more. I'm like, no, this is back in the day. This is right out of college. I'm like, okay, well, and I promise you, we went on, prayed some more. We had a third offering, and they made us get up and come to the front, And I didn't have more to give. I said, I gave it, I didn't know we had a third. Cause I'm like, what is going on right here?
I would have budgeted out for 3.
I would have budgeted. Yeah. That's what I'm like, what's going on? So to me, and then to me, it was
they didn't believe the third time.
yeah, no, that's what it was. But the thing is, this was an intentional because the way it was set up, I felt pressure because like you're making me stand up. I had to act like I put something in the offering plate.
It was process.
It was a process. And I'm like, and that turned me off. I never went to that church again, to be honest. And I actually enjoyed the service. But that turned me off because I'm like, I felt, bamboozled. I it felt like a shakedown.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like one of the most important things that I don't think we do enough of is educate on financial literacy.
Correct.
If we got grandma in there praising God because she believes God is everything, God is abundant, which he is. She should believe that. But she say, I'm gonna give all I have to God and God gonna make it, my rent's gonna get paid. Like that's not, to me, that's wrong. We shouldn't position our people in, that magnitude to where they're given to the point where the budget is completely out of whack.
Well, I think point you hitting at is kind of going to the topic too about the church as well. God is not transactional. And I think when you get in those situations like you're talking about where someone's telling somebody that, hey, if you give God all you got, God gonna give you back 2-fold, 3-fold.
Yeah.
And they're thinking that, okay, well, if I give 100, God gonna give me back 300. God is not an investment.
Great investment.
Yeah. God is not a Ponzi scheme. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, but that mindset, that transactional piece, that the way it gets discussed sometimes, and the way, in those shakedown moments too, they'll make you feel, you're going to get blessed. And you get blessed because you give from your heart. You give, like we talked about before, God instructed you to give. Because I've been in places where, I give you a good example. I went, to get the car wash. And and those guys out there hustling and doing their thing, so I always want to give them a tip.
Yeah.
Now, I didn't have no singles in my wallet at the time. And I was like, but something told me, give them what you got.
Yeah.
So I gave him, man, what I had.
Yeah.
And then it's just funny, he didn't look at it until I drove off. And then Sherry's like, hey, but but that was a spirit that led me to do that.
Right.
And what, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. And I had to learn that over time because I was transactional with God in the beginning when I used to give. I'm like, man, okay, wallet ain't filling up. I'm saying,
It's a spirit of giving too.
Yeah.
You have to give with the right spirit. You can't give with a begrudging spirit.
Correct.
Because if you're doing it just because, well, God, I know you watching, I'm gonna just, it's like, that's almost like a childlike mentality. Like, I'm gonna just do it because I've been told to do it. But if it's not really in your heart, that's the part that you need to address.
Yeah.
And it's not for us to regulate the money. Once again, I think people tie too much ownership over these dollar bills. Because I've been in situations where if I'm walking to, a restaurant and it's on my spirit to give to a couple of the homeless people right there, why you giving that money? They probably gonna go to the liquor store. I've seen it done. I've seen somebody take my money and go directly to the liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
That's not on me though.
No.
What they do with it after it passes through me is on them. That's between them and God.
Yeah.
It was between me and God to give. And after they received, that's on them. I'm not even worried about what they're doing with it.
No, I feel
Hopefully they're gonna get some food, but
I mean, shoot, for the people, let's go ahead. 2 Corinthians 9:6. Remember this. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. If each of you should give what you have decided in your heart. So do I give everything that I have and then have nothing to take care of myself? Is that what is in your heart? It don't make sense. Let's keep moving. not reluctantly or under compulsion. The pastor said, give now or else you will not be saved. That's compulsion.
Yeah.
For God loves a cheerful giver.
Yeah,
Did you want to do it because you wanted to do it, or are you doing it because you feel forced to do it?
Yeah.
And God is able to bless you abundantly so that in all things, at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. What is a good work? We talked about a good Samaritan who was able to help a man who was struggling on the side of the street because he just got beat up. He could provide for him. He could take care of him. And I want to go down to this last part of this, verse 11. You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion.
Wow.
And through us, your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God.
Man, that's a drop the mic moment. And give that scripture title again so they know.
This is 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 11. Go ahead and read for yourself. Yeah,
Yeah, right. That's what you
Yes.
No, real talk.
That's real.
And one thing I can say 100%, every time I gave more freely or even invested more freely, I received more in abundance. You know, my dad always used to say, you know, a closed fist, you hold on to what you got, but you can't receive no new money. So that's the thing where we got to really challenge our way of thinking. And we got to take the time to educate ourselves financially so that we can give more. Not just so we can just dive in our gold like Scrooge McDuck. It's no pleasure in that. To be honest, it's really no pleasure in that because we know in the banking system, even if your money's sitting in the bank and you're just looking at it every day, you're actually losing money because inflation is rising at a rate that your money's not. So you really have to just rethink the principles. We got to rethink everything about money, to be honest, and we have to educate ourselves and our community.
Well, look, I'm loving this discussion. This is one of those we might have to have a part B to it as well too, because we get into that witching hour. But I mean, we hit on some great points. I don't know, Martell, we hit on everything that kind of you had outlined when you kind of threw this topic out initially.
There's definitely, I feel like, some more unpacking to do because there's a few of you who are still thinking, well, nah, God, I mean, for the love of money. And then they're probably thinking about the rich man won't make it, how hard it is for a rich man to go into heaven. And it's like, but wait a minute, don't be isolating scriptures because all of that works together.
Yeah.
How many times did God talk about how diligence leads to riches? Why wouldn't he want that for his people?
Right.
In the garden, do you feel like they didn't have what they need? or does it say that they had an abundance?
They had a bunch. And even with the gifts, the giving of the, hey, what does individuals do with the gifts, the three individuals?
And like you were touching on earlier, being rich is not necessarily just having a lot of money. Like it's people, the richest people that I've met are rich in spirit and joy.
Now see, Mike, I don't know where you're going, but somebody is going to take that and say, well, it doesn't mean money at all.
Well, that's fine. I mean, I don't think our job is to convince anybody that they need money. I mean, if you don't know that you need money as a tool, we got to go back.
That's between you and God.
Yeah, we got to leave that between you and God. But
I get what you said. It's like that richness, and then we term rich in a different way, right? It's really about peace. It's about joy. Yeah. So when we talk about having that relationship with God gives you joy. You don't have to have the material. You follow me? So it's not important to you. So somebody who, hey, they get $1,000 a month and they can live their life on $200 a month, they rich.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And see now we at the end, but y'all both just said it. Like
I got it. Well, go ahead. But anyway.
Because we at that point, that what y'all just said is the thing that people use as the trap. When the Bible talks about richness, it doesn't mean money, and it's
but I think
it's in the mix.
It's in the mix. I don't try to take it out.
It's in the mix.
And this is the thing that we got to be. You just said it, or maybe I just said it. I don't think we're trying to convince anybody of the money conversation. We're just trying to align different facts in the relationship between God and money. We just want to clarify.
Yeah.
Definitely.
You know, because it is misconstrued. Some people do misconstrue where if I'm a holy person, I can't be rich because, you know, they'll take scripture out of context. And we're just saying, listen, it's not a either or type of thing. You can be both.
It's harmony.
You can be a amazing person. Yeah, matter of fact, you can be more of an amazing person when you have more money because you can distribute it more freely.
Man, shoot, if you're an amazing person, I want you to have more money.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
to be honest,
Because you're gonna do the right thing with it.
you like I said, you have to have a certain level of means to be able to get, even in time. Time is the highest form of money in a certain context. Because once you spend time, you don't get it back.
Man,
You can get money back.
We spilling over into a whole other segment. We're gonna have to save us, Martell.
So the summary of this episode, man, I think we definitely touched on a lot of different avenues of, you know, that relationship between God and money. And I think it's really important to understand or to really listen. We said God and money. It's not a God or money situation. God wants you to have what you need. Why? Because he wants you to be able to take care of the rest of his children. Think about it in the kingdom concept. He doesn't want one of just the bad kids to have money and then all the good kids to be poor, broke, busted, disgusted, hungry, starving. They can't take care of themselves and they definitely can't take care of each other. That's not how it works. God in the scriptures, he talks about how you should think about it. It's not that he wants you to put money above him. He is supposed to be the highest. Love God first and then your neighbor, all right? And we talked about the Good Samaritan. Who is your neighbor? You have to have so that you can get it. I think that's what is important to understand in this. I'm glad that you came here with us. We are definitely not done talking about money.
No.
But thank you for joining us today. Make sure that you subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you have not already, go ahead and share this to somebody else who is having some money problems. Giving you shall receive. And we'll see y'all next week. Peace.
Peace.